And we are back. It's been a few weeks. We took a few weeks off, but we've got to wrap up our current discussion here on drinks and movies. Saturday nights wouldn't be complete without a little time enjoying good movies and good company and having a drink and hanging out. And as always, I'm joined by the bearded comic bro, Greg. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. It's weird. Like, I feel like when we don't do it for like a week, or I think this last one like was a 2-week break. I'm
Right.
like, what do I do with my Saturday nights? Like, this is weird. Which I don't know if that's like a testament to the show or just a testament to how boring my life is, where I'm like, what do I do when I'm not on a stream with John on Saturday nights? Like, what's my life? You know, my kids are all asleep. Now my wife's asleep. It's like, cool.
Yeah. I caught up on a couple of TV shows with the wife. That's about what I did. So I know all about Queen's Gambit. If anyone wants to talk about that,
ooh, I heard someone else posted about it. One of my coworkers said Queen's Gambit was really good. So
my wife's obsessed. So I when I was on live streams, she'd watch one, and then I'd be like, "Wait, did you watch one of that? Come on, that's not cool."
Ooh.
We are joined by the original Panda himself. I Got Issues is here, Chris. How you doing, man? Oh, he's going to go get the helmet. He's going to do it. I haven't seen the helmet in eons. Look at it. There it is.
That's so good.
Look at this thing, man.
I'm doing good.
It's been a long while. You're going to sweat yourself out in that thing.
Well, it just feels like old time. I'm going to have to drink through the eye hole like I used to. Mesh lets me pass through some liquids.
But actually, you're blocking us on the stream behind you. That's why we want you there. Oh, it's on John. It's not on me anymore. So take it off.
It's just playing John now. John and the girls back there just
you put the head back on. You can block that.
If you guys don't know I Got Issues, firstly, you're missing out on Instagram in a big, big way. And I put the link for his Instagram down below. Every single week, he's dropping some of the best covers that are coming out next week. I use it every week to look at what I'm thinking about. And there's tons of books that I miss out because I'm like, wait, I didn't spot Chris's list there. And he's always aware of stuff. And he's dropping these really cool covers, just really cool pieces by artists, because he follows so many different artists on Instagram that he's always highlighting this particular artist or this particular cover for me. So I definitely a huge thanks for that, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I think I put in probably as much work on Instagram as you guys all do on YouTube. It's just a different dynamic for me, and it fits
way more.
It fits my schedule better to just be able to mess around with Instagram and kind of do stuff on there that's more like faceless stuff. But I have a lot of stuff coming up, so keep your eyes open. I'm actually get some big moves coming in January
on the Instagram.
In general, with I Got Issues and expanding the reach a little bit, and
nice
more content.
The link for his Instagram and the YouTube are down below, so people can click over and subscribe. But I know you got some fans already in the chat, rocking and rolling, because I just saw DK Comics and Cosplay jumped in. Hello, Delphia. Thank goodness someone came on. We needed something to put on the TV while you decorate for Christmas.
It's a little early.
What the fish and chips are you talking about?
You guys are fantastic. John is a big fan of Christmas before Thanksgiving, so
I'm not a fan of Christmas before Thanksgiving. It's not even Thanksgiving yet, Perry. I agree. Thanksgiving is better and goes first, people.
Listen, John, it's like I said on your show, we are in first Christmas right now. No one's skipping Thanksgiving. We stop all the Christmas shenanigans on Thanksgiving Day. We eat the food, we celebrate, and then as soon as it's done, boom, second Christmas, and we get to celebrate again.
This is a flawed design.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful design because otherwise you get like 3 weeks of enjoying Christmas, and there's too much movies, there's too much lights, there's too much joy, John. People need to decorate for Christmas. It's 2020. Let them have it, okay? Let people decorate early. Let us drink our white peppermint chocolate mochas.
Ooh, now you're really losing me. You took another right. You're too many rights. 4 rights is a circle. 4 rights is a circle.
And let us watch Die Hard.
Now you're back. Now you're on the straight and narrow. Now you're back on top.
Best Christmas movie ever.
Hello, Todd Christian. Hello, Ruben Guzman. Hello, Sean of Stay Puff 1983. Let's see here. Perry says it's not even Thanksgiving. I already got that. I'm sorry. Saturday night entertainment for Kachung. There you go. Enjoy the Christmas decorating, I suppose. Whatever. I do what I want. Cartman. Boom. Hello, Captain Comics. Thank you for coming by. I like it to look Christmassy for Thanksgiving. Is that saying like what I like it to look 4th of July-ish for New Year's?
No, because that's too far away.
Okay.
Might be like doing like 4th of July, I guess Memorial Day. Those would be could be your same decorations.
That's an interesting theory. Inside decorations can happen now. It's the outside decorations that go after Thanksgiving. Then people don't know. It's like a secret Christmas, number one.
See, we're going to put them up next weekend, and we're going to let our Christmas flag fly.
Are you going to be like the guys with like the lights and the music orchestrated out front for like a month and a half?
Oh, yeah. And then I'm going to do our next stream, and I'm just going to be sitting outside freezing my butt off while the Christmas lights are in the background.
Yowza. Just yowza. Hello, Downright Nerdy Podcast. Mike, it's nice to see you. He's been doing his weekly movie reviews on his channel as well with his homies. So if you haven't seen Downright Annoyed with Movies, it's a highly entertaining live stream you should check out. And then I think I got everybody. Captain Comics, though, says every day is Halloween in his house, so he gets to go in the opposite direction.
I'm not surprised.
Counter programming. But tonight we're here to talk about crime movies. We spent a couple of live streams breaking down some of our favorite sort of subgenres for crime. We looked at drug crime, organized crime, heist movies, serial killer movies. Is it a crime movies? And really just had a fun discussion of some of our favorite sort of subgenres. Chris, I know you have some favorites in crime movies. Okay, first let's jump into wait, what are we drinking tonight, Bearded? What do you got there?
I was about to say, we got to pause that real quick before we get in, because this isn't just called movies.
No.
It's called Drinks and Movies.
Drinks and
Movies.
Movies.
A special drink. This is the first ever themed drink for the show. This is a beer that I featured on my Instagram. So if you follow me, you've seen it. It's from Brew Kettle, and it's a double IPA, and it's called the Utah. And that Johnny Utah, Ohio State #9 jersey right there. And it's obviously you can't have a crime talk and not if there's a beer with Point Break in it. And obviously you can't have a beer named after Johnny Utah and not have it called have it be a double IPA, because Utah's got to get them too. UC loves his ball subs.
Point Break is on here. Don't worry.
Oh, there it is. He's got, look at all that.
It's a sign. So I'm giving tribute to Point Break. How could I not drink that when we're talking heist crime movies?
That's amazing. So I went to Bevmo tonight when I was picking up dinner for the family, and I got a bottle of Buffalo Trace. This is a whiskey that the jabroni kept trying to get me to try out, and I never got around to it. Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. So I'm officially trying this for the very first time. So I'll pour a little on ice here and give it a review in a moment. This is my first time giving it a shot. But he never steered me wrong.
And it's good for you. It lubricates the brainstem.
There you go.
And whatever he said, I forget how he said it.
Stir that up. I mean, Chris, I saw you got a can of something there. What are you enjoying?
I go in a little bit of a different direction from you guys, and I'm going with a cider tonight. So I have some Down East original blend, unfiltered cider. So that's my go-to for tonight. Picked up a 4-pack of that on the way home from dinner myself.
Nice.
I actually had gotten a 6-pack of a holiday beer from Trogue, and it was disgusting. So I didn't even finish one bottle, and the other 5 are sitting in the fridge. So
it's kind of a risk, right? Sometimes you get those it's a chocolate malt. What is this?
That's what did it. See, the beer said it was like a cherry, like Belgian cherry kind of thing, and I thought that doesn't sound so bad. I could get down with that. Sam Adams has made like a cherry wheat. It's not bad.
This isn't bad.
So I got it and I drank it, and I was like, this is just terrible. And so I looked it up online, and they were like, oh, it's like chocolate and cinnamon. And I was like, I should have Googled this before I gave them $15 at the store.
Well, and now you have to be that guy when people come over your house and be like, "Hey, I've got this holiday beer. You guys should really try it out."
Actually, one of my wife's friends is here, and he's drinking it out in the kitchen right now as we speak. I actually said when we were on our way to dinner, I said you should call Jonathan and ask him if he wants these because I don't.
Hey, if you get rid of them, that's all that matters, right?
We just got new neighbors next door, and I suggested seeing if they wanted it. My wife was like, "You're going to hand them like a not full 6-pack of a disgusting beer."
Because they're gonna know exactly what happened. They're like, wait a second.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'll be honest, I'd still appreciate it if you got me a beer. I don't care if it's a 6-pack with 4 in it or 5 missing. I'd be like, man, you got me a beer. That's nice.
Downright 7, a Neapolitan milkshake. He is an In-N-Out fiend. I don't know if you saw the video where he had the like 10 by 10 burger. The funny thing is I went out and got a double the same day because I was like, oh, it looks good, but like the 10 by 10 was a powerful eat.
It's kind of like when you watched if you'd watch Super Size Me, the documentary, and you're like, I'm gonna go out and eat McDonald's now because of that.
Right.
It defeats the point. You watch Downright Nerdy do his 10 by 10, you're like, oh, you look miserable. Let's go do it.
Yeah. Hello, Geek Aficionado. Thanks for coming by, man. He says he just finished a bottle of wine. Does that qualify?
Absolutely.
Hey, you can be drinking water if you want. It's just having a drink and talking movies. We're all here to hang. And then Kachung's doing the eggnog. There you go. Don't eat at McDonald's, says Sharon. Thank you for coming by, though, Sharon. So Chris, when it comes to crime movies, I feel like they're a very popular sort of genre in the United States. What do you is it something to do with our like renegade, rebellious nature as a nation that draws us to crime movies? What do you think it is?
I think it's a little bit of historical motivation. I think so many of our favorite crime genres are actually reflective of historical events and actual stories. So I think it's like interesting for people to get entertainment and at the same time being like secretly educated.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because I mean, you look at gangster movies; they're all very historical era kind of things. Yeah, that's an interesting comment I hadn't. And then, of course, some of my favorite serial killer movies are really about the history of criminal profiling, right? Like behavioral sciences is almost the more interesting side of it.
Yeah. So there's such a real life dynamic to it that I think people are sort of drawn to, aside from the fact that it's just something that's like programmed into us as kids. At some point as kids, you play cowboys and Indians or cops and robbers or something like that. And so you just have this like inherent attraction to that, that idea. And so when a movie with those topics is handed to you, you just eat it up. And you're right. It does seem like it's a very, very American thing, but I think we have such a rich history of crime and illegality in our country's history that it's inevitable.
Well, and so you mentioned the cops and robbers thing because it made me think of the sort of in all the genres there's a cat and mouse element, and like so, Greg, would you look at even if you look at like the gangster movies. There's like this family versus that family, the backstabbing. Right. There's a constant cat and mouse thing. Do you think that's part of it too? Just the joy of like who's going to come out on top kind of thing?
Well, I think it absolutely is part of that. Because when you have it, most of them too are set up in a way that the lines are blurred of who's good and who's bad. For some of them, there are some where you clearly can walk away and go, nah, he's bad. Like, that's messed up. But like, or not even who's good or who's bad. Like you can sympathize why they're doing it, right? Like like Catch Me If You Can. It's a great cat and mouse game kind of movie that we talked about. Like, and there is this kind of, do you want them to get caught or do you want them to get away kind of feeling? And I think you have that because if the characters are compelling enough that you're going to be drawn into it. And I think that's what makes it engaging because I could walk out of that movie going, I wanted Leo to get away, and you could walk out of that movie going, I want Leo to get caught, and one of us is going to be happy, one of us is going to be bummed, or one's going to be like, I liked how, I think it allows you to kind of, if you relate to them, it allows that kind of to open the door for you, and I think it reaches different people in different ways, so I think that's part of it too, because some people love to be the cops, and some kids when you were playing robbers, like we're always going to be the ones robbing the bank. Like,
well, I think there's that's the element that I find interesting too. I think that our nation has always really loved anti-heroes, those people that are not your traditional white hat heroes, those ones that have the flaws. I mean, as much as Michael Corleone is the villain later on, he's the hero in so many moments of The Godfather.
Right.
It's when he finally turns on his own family and betrays that element that we view him negatively, right? When we see him defending his father and going and killing those people in the restaurant and running off to Italy, we're almost happy that he's doing it, because we are like, hey, these crooked people have been like attacking his dad, and he's getting the revenge that he deserves. But then later, when he's closing the door on his wife and his family, or in the second film when he's betraying his brother, then we start to get that, oh, maybe he's not the good guy we wanted him to be. That I feel like there's an anti-hero thing in this as well. What do you think, Chris?
Yo, go ahead, dude.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think that filters into our comic books a lot too. Like we have, a lot of characters that were created as villains that have shifted the door to kind of an anti-hero. Like, your Venom, your, Punisher is an anti-hero. He wasn't created as a villain, but your Harley Quinn even now is like, as she Loki in the MCU movies, like there's this kind of like, hey, you're kind of pulling for him root. And so I think there is that kind of that, I think the flawed individual where it's not like the clean cut hero of hope, like Superman, right? Like, I think that's why people can sometimes relate with him. So like can't relate with him because he seems so, they call him the Boy Scout, where people are like, oh, I can relate to, maybe why Eddie Brock's doing what he's doing or things like that. So, but anyways, Chris, what were you?
No, I would say the same thing. I mean, you're right, hit the nail on the head. It's the imperfection of these characters. And that's when Marvel really grew as a company and took so many people away from DC. Bringing up the comic portion is that Marvel was really on top of addressing like the human nature of the heroes for a long time. They just built on it where it was like, let's tackle real life problems. Our heroes can't just put on a cape and punch bad guys in the face. Like they have a real life when the suit comes off, and we want to talk about like those difficulties. And so I think that plays into these movies where, yeah, you don't just want like the good guy to be perfect and to win. It takes all the fun out of it, and it takes the drama out of it. And like I said, since a lot of these things have historical reference, it just wouldn't be accurate, because that's not how life works. There is no such thing as a real life white knight. Everybody is flawed. Everybody makes errors. Everybody messes up. And the point is learning from mistakes and, changing your outlook on things, as opposed to, thinking that perfection is actually attainable.
That's well said. Well said. Geek Aficionado, thanks for coming by. And then I saw Gore Vidal is in the chat. He's saying to catch a thief, he's sure Cary Grant wanted to be caught in Grace Kelly's arms. And I'm sure that sentiment was reciprocal. Hey, everybody wants to get caught by Grace Kelly at some point, obviously, when she was alive.
Or Cary Grant.
Or Cary Grant, hey. I know what you're getting at, Bearded Comic Bro. Marvel definitely depicts Punisher as the anti-hero, but to me, he's more of a serial killer. I mean, the stability of his mental state is kind of what it comes down to for a lot of people. Kachun was asking, what is the format for tonight? This is our end of subject recap live stream, and we got issues on to sort of go back through the categories that we broke down. Is there one category, Chris, that you want to discuss first that you maybe find most interesting? Organized crimes. I know heist films we felt like was the broadest category and was so packed.
That heist is definitely where I pick the most movies that I could possibly talk about, because it is like broad category. And so definitely I would say for me, like heist was the most, and then drug crime, and then organized crime. And then for me personally, serial killers was like at the bottom. Like I don't have like a wealth of serial killer movies that I'm really into. Like I know which ones are popular and which ones people love. And you talked about a bunch of them, but for me, they're not like my go-to in this genre. But
let's jump into some heist movies. What are some of your favorite heist movies then?
oh man, so let me just say right off the bat, I wanted to recognize the fact, and I said it before we started the show, but this series of episodes is the most that I've ever agreed with you guys watching one of these movies. I'm usually so anti like 99% of what you guys come up with that
I don't know if I should be if I should be happy about that or like, oh, great, he agreed with us. Oh, we need to recheck our list.
It shows that people have such dynamically different tastes when it comes to certain movies. But I think there is some universal stuff to certain crime movies that everybody enjoys some of the same movies. It's just hard to get away from. It involves you as a story and has great actors, which so many of them do, then that's why they're so like you gravitate towards them. So in your guys' list, I pretty much loved every movie you picked. Heat, definitely one of my favorites. Baby Driver, one of my favorite movies of the last few years, without a doubt. And you're right on the money too. The soundtrack makes a huge part of the movie. The soundtrack is like the supporting actor of that film.
Yes.
Without a doubt. And so obviously Italian Job and Ocean's 11. I like the whole Ocean series, but Ocean's 11 is the movie for sure. So I wanted to go a little bit outside the box too and kind of tackle some movies that I've seen that maybe aren't as popular or maybe really well reviewed, but people don't necessarily know about. And then some are really popular that I was kind of surprised that you guys didn't pick. So like, well, I consider it a heist movie, and we already sort of talked about it, but Point Break is one of my favorite movies of like all time. I can't make a list about crime movies that doesn't have Point Break on it. I just can't.
And we went back and forth on like robbing a bank. Is it a heist? Because we could have almost done a whole show just on bank robbery movies because there's so many.
Right.
And it was like, how do you break apart a heist movie from a bank robbery movie? Because some of the times it's like overlapping, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's such a fluid topic, right? You could have easily said something like, "What about John Q? Like he holds up a hospital or something like that." But yeah, man, Point Break. I just rewatched that this week because I was drinking the beers. I was like, I should rewatch Point Break, and man, it's still fun.
It's so good.
It's so ludicrous. And then I watched the trailer for the new Point Break, and I'm like, I will never watch that. That looks horrible.
It's I watched it obviously because of how much I love the original, and it doesn't. It's also almost like a completely different movie, to be honest.
Right.
It shares a couple names and like a general undercover cop, like crazy bad guy theme, but other than that, the movie is like drastically different from the original. So,
are there good meatball subs in that one?
No. No,
then I don't want to watch it.
There's a lot more. It's all extreme sports, though. So if you like that adrenaline pumping, dirt bike riding, surfing, street fighting kind of nonsense, parachuting off in dirt bikes out of skyscraper windows, like ridiculous stuff.
I thought it looked a little more Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, which by the way is my guilty pleasure movie on my heist list. Fast 5.
But that's funny you said that because Point Break is Fast and the Furious before, let me say, Fast and the Furious 6 or any of the Fast and the Furious 6 movies before they were. Like what the Fast and the Furious series has turned into is exactly what Point Break is, right? Like the idea of, I'm buddy with the, get in with the cronies and
absolutely.
But
yeah. The going undercover to try to catch the bad guys in all their adrenaline junkie ways.
And talking about Baby Driver, which is Edgar Wright, who he did the Coronado trilogy, like the Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, World's End.
Right.
You don't get great lines where the guy's trying to figure out how to be a cop, and Hot Fuzz is like, "You never held your gun up in the air and shut it off." And he does all of it, and they just hit on all the classic cop tropes.
Just awesome.
And if you've never seen Point Break, you're like, I don't get that.
Yeah.
It's a good moment. It's a classic
What else you
moment.
got, Chris? I like this.
So hold on one second. I'm sorry. My daughter is like peeking in the room.
No, it's fine. So, for me, one of the heist films that we didn't mention that I'm a big fan of is Thomas Crown Affair. So my dad and a certain generation would say the original, they're big fans of the Steve McQueen. I honestly prefer the updated version. The Pierce Brosnan.
Gore's
What's
gonna
that?
rip you.
Gore will get upset. It's fine. I honestly can't watch the original without laughing at it. Mostly because I think Austin Powers sent up the chess scene so beautifully that I can't watch that chess scene and have it be like sexy the way they're touching the chess pieces. When you've seen Austin Powers basically take that scene apart and show you how ridiculous and stupid it is, like I can't take it seriously anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
My two favorites on my list is Hell or High Water.
Good one. Good one.
And The Town, which is a big one for me.
The Town I almost put it on the list. It was gonna be, honestly, it was down to, if I was gonna take off to Departed, it was gonna be for The Town.
Yeah, and I would keep Departed on a list before I put The Town on a list.
Right.
So that's not necessarily like a tough call, but definitely a movie that, for me, having the luxury of being able to avoid the movies that you guys already picked, it gives me that like outskirts, honorable mention territory. I can kind of pick at those movies. But Hell or High Water is my favorite, I think, heist movie. Just such a good overall film, where the heist is vitally important to the storyline, but it's also not just like a bad guy film. And like you brought up earlier, it's also one of those movies where you kind of like feel for the like bad guys, and you're kind of like, are they really bad guys? Like, who's the bad? Is the bank the bad guys?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And at one point, like, are the lawmen the bad guys? Like, are they really like accomplishing anything, or are they creating like more problems that ultimately leads to a lot of probably avoidable death that happens in the last scene of that, the last chapter of that movie?
That's one that I remember watching, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. But it's not one I've revisited a lot, just because I don't think it's out there as much. But man, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's one that needs to be talked about. And if you guys haven't watched that,
I've compared that one a bunch to No Country for Old Men, as far as what's kind of going on in the story. And the funny thing is, I truly don't like No Country for Old Men, but I love Hell or High Water. I feel like it's because one has a very nihilistic sensibility and the other doesn't. Hell or High Water is not nihilistic in any way. It is not designed to just be like, hey, shit happens. Characters are going to die. You're going to suck it up, and nobody's going to end up happy. Hell or High Water wants to say that sometimes justice can be found by its own route. Like and in that way, even though it's got a really dark ending in some ways, it's got a hope. It's got hope where No Country for Old Men has zero hope and doesn't want to even give you the glimmer of hope.
I really like the ending too, because of the way that it leaves that kind of relationship between the main character and the cop kind of like ambiguous about, like, the bad guy didn't necessarily win. Like, he could still lose. Who won is like the bank kind of got beat and his family is taken care of, where like generations of his family will no longer have to live in like abject poverty. So like, he was a good guy and a savior for his family, but it's kind of leaving the door open that he ultimately kind of like might meet his end in kind of like a violent way,
right,
in the near future, potentially.
Well, and I think the way they used the Jeff Bridges character makes it all work. When he's realizing that at first he's not taking the crimes as seriously as he probably should, and then once the crimes turn in dramatically violent, he takes on a whole new persona.
Yeah.
His demeanor changes dramatically, and I think it really makes the movie work. That evolution.
And
it almost reminds me of like what Texas Blood comic was trying to do, of trying to get that kind of world view of there. So be interesting. So hey, before I slowly took it away, Mr. Gretzky, we'll talk about Dick Tracy here when we talk about organized crime. So.
And Rod is throwing out a lot of Al Pacino movies too. So Dick Tracy,
but Rod's already gone tonight. It's past his bedtime.
Yeah, I respect that. Yeah, so those are great great choices. And I've seen Hell or High Water probably 4 or 5 times. When it was streaming on Netflix, I was like, oh, I'll just sit down and watch that. It was just the performances are so good.
So someone in the chat mentioned Inside Man, and I feel like that was one that we weren't really like sold on of like that we loved it. Like it was a fine movie, but it didn't beat out the other ones that we had put into it. So I think Inside Man wasn't terrible. I think that's kind of where we were at. Like
I think it's better than that.
Right.
But I get what you're saying, that it's certainly a by the book film. Right. But I think the twists are hard to see coming. I think the performances are really good, and it's got that Spike Lee style where it just is incredibly like captivating.
Plus Denzel is in it, so
yeah.
And
I mean,
Jodie Foster.
This might have been the first series where we didn't talk about a Denzel movie, which is weird because we didn't talk about Training Day.
No.
And I got a couple Denzel movies on this list.
So
I feel like that would be
then I'm not going to spoil anymore. We didn't talk about Denzel. Write us up for not talking about my love affair I have with Denzel Washington movies.
He's my favorite actor of all time.
Oh, hands down.
It's hard for me to talk about too many categories without trying to find a Denzel movie that fits in there somewhere.
He fits into most categories, yeah.
I only have one other movie in this list that I wanted to throw in there. And for me, it's like a sleeper one because it's kind of like outside the norm. And I know when I've told people to watch it, a lot of people have never heard of it. And it's Logan Lucky.
Ooh, yeah, Soderbergh. Nice.
Which is a sort of out there film. It's got like, I think Adam Driver is just such a phenomenal actor. And Daniel Craig is in that movie in a way that like will mess your brain up, especially if you're mostly just familiar with him from like the Bond films, which is mostly what I'm familiar with him from. And you watch that movie and you're just like, what the heck, And it's probably the only movie I've ever seen that I didn't think like Channing Tatum was a complete douche.
That's the only movie of his that you didn't think he was a complete douche? Man.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've liked some other movies that he was in, but he was still sort of like douchey in them.
Yeah, I guess because I like him in Foxcatcher, and he kind of has to play a douchey role in that. But
yeah, that's a great movie. But
he still is. I get that. I'll respect that. So I'll allow it. I'll allow it on the show.
Logan Lucky is a lot of fun because the characters are so odd and creative. And I'm a big Soderbergh fan, anyways. And I know that we've talked about Ocean's 11, and I love Out of Sight, which is another odd, quirky crime caper kind of thing. But what I liked about Logan Lucky, are those personalities, and anybody who's seen Knives Out and liked him in that, liked the way that the Southern drawl and the style of performance that Daniel Craig does there, I think you'll get a lot of kicks out of Logan Lucky as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then I didn't want to overcrowd my list, but I just wanted to throw this out there real quick, given the fact that we're all part of the comic community. I was almost kind of surprised that you guys didn't just, for the shits of it, throw Ant-Man on your list of heist movies. Not a better film than the films you picked, because it's not, but just as like a kind of, even in the sentimental pick category of like, hey, we're big comic guys, like Ant-Man is really just a heist film with like a superhero costume.
Yeah, I'll say my opinion, and John, I'll let you jump in.
Personally, we went around and looked at Endgame as a time heist. We thought both Ant-Man and Ant-Man 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp have heist elements. And in the end, I think we came down with what you just said, where I felt like these other films are just so much more superior, and I don't want to take up a spot just to throw a comic book movie in.
And my stance with why I like doing this show is that it takes a break a little bit away from comics. Like we tie stuff into comic book movies, but I feel so many channels that we watch and talk about, they talk about what are some of the best comic book movies, right? Your Batmans, your Dark Knights, your Avengers Endgame. And for me, I like kind of having a break. So if it's going to make it on our list, like Avengers Endgame made the time travel action movie list for us. And if it's going to make our list, I feel like it has to be a pretty epic to make it for me personally, because I'm like, people. So some of them probably are going to get a shaft sometimes because I'm like, yeah, people talk about comic book movies all the time.
I legitimately thought about Raiders of the Lost Ark as a heist movie for a really long time. It was like borderline for me because it's constantly like steal this away from this group and then steal it back from this person and steal it and finding there's a definite heist quality to Raiders that I like legitimately considered, mostly just because I think Raiders is my Point Break. Like I can put Raiders on any list, anytime, anywhere.
And 90 makes a great point. Rogue One absolutely a heist movie.
I fully agree.
I can't just and Mr. Gretzky, National Treasure is a heist movie too, but it ain't making my list.
Yeah. And then you know what? I have like two sort of heist movies that are on my is it a crime?
Ooh.
And for me, I put, and I really enjoy it, is Drive. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, and I'm a really big fan of that movie, and the director is really good. I've liked his other stuff, Neon Demon and Only God Forgives, even though they're really kind of out there trippy movies. But heist itself isn't like the main component of Drive, so I was like hesitant to say whether or not I think it's actually like a heist movie. It goes back to that argument you guys had with like sports movies and like Draft Day and stuff like that. Like, does having that element in it make it that movie? And so for me with Drive, I wasn't sure. And so I kind of was on the fence about, putting it on my list at all. So that one was kind of out there. And then you
want to buy a replica of that jacket though and wear it.
Yeah. Well, if I looked like Ryan Reynolds, I'd rock that.
I wouldn't wear a shirt. What are you talking about?
And then the other one that I threw in there that I don't even know what category it would go in, but out of all of them, heist would probably be it. And it's a dumb movie, but it's just a movie I really enjoyed. Was Pain and Gain.
I've never seen that. That's with The Rock,
Mark Wahlberg and The Rock, right?
Yeah, and it's just and like Tony Shalhoub is in it, and it's just it's like a dumb movie, but it once again that would be in like my guilty pleasures category of like not a great film, but like an enjoyable film to watch.
Listen, it can go in a heist movie. If John can put Ace Ventura in as a sports movie,
I did. I legitimately did. It qualified on every level.
I will say this because I told Dustin I was hopping on Two Brothers stream before we hopped on, and I was telling him we were talking like rehashing heist movies and stuff, and he goes, "Did you guys put Blue Streak on as a heist movie?" And I told him we didn't, but I told him I would have mentioned it because it actually is a funny movie with Martin Lawrence. It's not great.
Lawrence, yeah.
And it's not
he hides the money in a building and then goes to jail.
It turns into a police station. Yeah. It's a funny concept and it's a funny movie. And Dave Chappelle is in it when he did all those like small roles, and he's like, "Do that gut and eye thing." And he's like, and just classic like side character Dave Chappelle was fantastic. See, I made Jimmy happy, and that's sad. I'm just joking.
There you go. That's what it's all about. Okay, so I know that you said outside of heist films, we had gangsters, we had drug movies. Was there one that you wanted to try out first?
No, you guys are in charge here. I'm just here.
No, you're our guest. We've talked about our movies through all.
I'm a big organized crime movie fan. Like gangster movies are like the bomb. So yeah, I'm definitely down.
So and that this is my plan for every category. I basically labeled like which ones of your guys' picks were definitely my favorites that would have made my list. And so from this category, I had Untouchables, LA Confidential, and The Departed as like my three favorites from the list that you guys made. Like without a doubt, I would have picked those on my own if you hadn't. So for sure, those ones are 100%. I went with a couple that were like a little bit different, but Killing Them Softly is a movie that I really, really enjoy as an organized crime movie. And I'm sort of like a little gay for Brad Pitt, so
I'm trying. Yeah, that's the one where he's got like the goatee and he's the hitman.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to see yet, but I mean, Chris, who isn't? It's Brad Pitt.
I have no shame in saying that. So
you shouldn't, because I'll happily watch Moneyball and just drool.
Yeah. So that one's on my list, and then kind of in a similar realm to that is The Drop, which is a Tom Hardy movie, and James Gandolfini's in it.
I've never heard of this one right now.
That's sort of an outlier. The basis of the movie is that Tom Hardy is a bartender in a bar that James Gandolfini runs that is basically like a mob drop spot for money. And similar to parts of Killing Them Softly, it revolves around like the bar being robbed and their relation to the mob. And Tom Hardy's kind of like the main character in that. And so I can't really say anything else without spoiling the rest of the story. But it kind of centers around like mob activity and the mob using the bar and Tom Hardy's relationship to all of this crime and turmoil and death that's kind of going on around him. Definitely a movie I would recommend watching if you haven't seen it.
Nice. Yeah.
It's on my list now.
90s talking about, it's actually Infernal Affairs, the original Hong Kong action film that they based The Departed on, is a really great movie. And there's actually I want to say there's a trilogy of films, because there's like a prequel one and a sequel one. They ended up because the original film was so popular because it's so freaking good. I like it a ton more than I like The Departed. Infernal Affairs is a cool action movie.
Yeah, I knew that it was based off of like a Chinese film, but I've never watched it. So I mean, if you say it's that good, I'll have to.
Well, I mean, most any movie, I feel, especially like in crime or action movie, is based off a foreign film.
Yeah, there's a lot of that for sure.
But I think there's, I think Hong Kong action movies, and maybe it was just the timing of people like Chow Yun-fat and John Woo, like the Hong Kong action genre almost is a really cool style of movie. And it's we mentioned at the beginning that the crime movies are kind of an American thing, but like clearly cultures like Italian films and Chinese action films have taken that seed and come up with their own spin on it. And I love a good Hong Kong action movie where they're like shooting the gun sideways and flipping in the air, and it's all slow motion. And there's freaking doves flying out of nowhere. It's just like
John Woo and his damn doves.
John Woo in his prime, right there.
Heck, man, give me Face Off any day of the week, man. I'll take it.
Is Face Off a heist movie? Because
They're
still
stealing an identity.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what's funny is I was talking about what movies I picked over dinner, and my wife actually brought up Face Off, and I was kind of like, no, I don't. I mean, for me, no, but I could understand someone trying to, make that argument, but it's a little too square peg for my round hole,
So I will say this though, it is one of my go-to like background action movies. Like if it's on, I'll watch it. I know it's a horrible movie. It's a dumb concept, like that would never work, but I love it. And I think like the craziness of your John Travolta and your craziness of your Nicolas Cage is what makes it work, and it makes it so entertaining. You have anyone else there, like, because they can be such over the top actors where it doesn't work for them as well in other movies, like Swordfish. Like John Travolta's character is a little too much in that, but like in this, it works perfectly. So I watch that anytime it's on. I love.
I will say I I can almost like by year tell you when I started to like Nick Cage and when I stopped caring. Like it's like right around Face Off and Con Air, and then I was like, okay, I'm done now. I'm done. Like I don't want his Ghost Rider. I don't want anything after that.
You don't want the Nick Cage just blowing in your ear with this.
No,
his hair blowing.
He was batshit crazy earlier than that, but I can watch The Rock and get a lot of joy out of it, and I can watch Face Off and get a ton of joy out of it because of how I love watching them play each other because they're both so bonkers, and to have them play each other, they're almost brothers anyways, and they're crazy messed up performances. Like
that
movie it makes there's no logic to it. Screw logic. It's just
not at all.
It's just hilarity. When Travolta is teaching his daughter how to like stab a guy who's trying to date rape you, it's like that whole sequence is just amazing.
Right.
Ooh, Gore Vidal mentions the craze. Ooh, going some dark. Ooh, and Long Good Friday, Bob Hoskins. Ooh, man. So yeah, sorry. I wanted to mention you didn't touch on Scorsese and you didn't touch on Coppola. What?
So I'll tell you guys this before I go to the rest of my list, and it's probably going to damage your view of my entire opinion on this category, but I'm totally comfortable with it. I have not seen Goodfellas, any of the Godfather movies. I do not watch mobster, like Italian mafia movies. I just don't find them to be like an entertaining category. So I've just always like avoided them. And at the time that I grew up as a kid, I wasn't able to watch those movies because of the way that my household was. So by the time I was old enough to watch them, it sort of became a mixture of like not caring about that part of the genre, and also the fact that I'm inherently like a contrarian. So like the more people tell me to do something or watch something, the more likely it becomes that I never have to will.
That's totally fair, because I've had those, albums, bands, movies, and TV series that I felt the same way about. Where it's like, yeah, okay, now it's too late. It's past.
It's you can't really knock someone like, because there's so much out there, and there's so much out there in every culture. Like, I mean, we're obsessed with comics, and I know there are comic book series that I still have not read. And people are like, you haven't read Neil Gaiman's Sandman yet? I'm like, nope, I need to. It's on my list. Like, yeah, like there's a whole bunch. They're like, wait, you're reading stuff like whatever I'm reading, like Batman and the Outsiders, but you're not reading Neil Gaiman. Like, yeah. So I can't fault you on that at all. Oh my goodness, this was
Holy Biscuits. That's a good movie.
This was a movie that I will say revitalized Downey's career before Iron Man did. Everyone, yeah. I'm not saying Iron Man didn't, because it made him mainstream, but seeing him in this movie, I think is where I got back. I'm like, okay, Downey's back to play. And it's him and Val Kilmer are fantastic in this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's surprising that you haven't seen some of those. I will say, if you don't like mobster movies, that's going to be hard to then get into these. But I will say what I love about the original Godfather is it doesn't feel like the norm, because it's really about family in a different kind of way, and it's less typical. I know that it's been emulated a crap ton. But I would say if I was going to convince you to watch any of them, that would be the original one. Mostly just because the filmmaking, the artistry of filmmaking is on a whole other level.
Yeah. I mean, eventually I probably will just crumble and watch like a ton of those films. It's going to be one of those days where I'm just like, what else is there to do?
But if you watch the original Godfather and you don't like it, then just feel comfortable with walking away from the whole thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would say feel comfortable walking away from Goodfellas, any other. Like, if you watch Godfather and you don't like it, none of the others are going to kick it for you. So,
yeah, for sure. So I picked also on my list another Tom Hardy movie that's a little out there, and that's Lawless.
Ooh,
that's Shia LaBeouf.
With Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, and I know you guys like him because you're huge Memento fans, but Guy Pearce is bizarre in that movie.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's kind of like outside because, prohibition and talking about that and bootleggers, like, is that organized crime? How does that fit? But definitely one of those movies, too, that fits again into that category of like you are absolutely rooting for the bad guys, and the guys who are supposed to be the good guys are like complete pieces of garbage that you just want nothing more than to see them,
Right.
So
there were a lot of films that I mean, that's a nice one because it's more historical, but there were a lot of films I looked at as far as organized crime in New York, movies like King of New York or New Jack City, movies that look at sort of urban crime, organized crime in different ways. But I just kept going back to more historical stuff. Like Lawless would have fit more into what I was looking at from this category.
Yeah,
you in a more Italian organized crime.
Well, I mean, but Italian or Irish. I mean, ultimately, Miller's Crossing, L.A. Confidential, Goodfellas, Godfather. Goodfellas was probably the closest to modern times of any of those movies, and it was like straight '80s gangster stuff. So I tended to veer more for the older stuff for me. Oh yeah, gangs in New York. There's some Irish and Italian gangsters.
Great. Which is a great one. And I mean, obviously I gotta represent now for Charlie. I mean, one of the greatest organized crime movies is Dick Tracy.
So there it is.
He said it.
I said it.
Bibba did it. Bibba did it.
It's so good. I won't even say it's a guilty pleasure. It's just a great movie. So
I feel guilty that it's your pleasure.
It's not my pleasure. It's straight up is a great movie. And it laid the groundwork for epic comic book movies moving forward. Without Dick Tracy, you wouldn't have the MCU.
Yeah, well, okay, you could say that, I suppose.
Yeah, I could say a lot of things. It doesn't make them true.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Casino fan. 90. I mean, I don't hate it or anything. I just think it's it's a little too long, a little too slow, a little too much for me. But to each their own. I had mentioned Miller's Crossing. Have you ever seen that one, Chris?
I have not. No.
Okay. I feel like I'm the only person who loves this movie. It's an early Coen brothers movie. I want to say like their third movie or fourth movie. So pre-Fargo, when everybody kind of like really started watching their stuff. So after Raising Arizona, though, and I love Gabriel Byrne. I mean, he just is phenomenal as somebody who you can't read. Like you can tell he's thinking, and you want to know what he's thinking, but you can't read him. And the whole movie, he's keeping like everybody's secrets and playing and lying to everybody. And you're trying to figure out what his end game is, and you just can't because he's always like a few steps ahead. And it's fun to watch him kind of play everybody. And you got Italian versus Irish mobsters in I think they're in Chicago. That Capone era kind of stuff, Prohibition era. All right. So is that it are we good for organized crime?
No, I could go all day. I mean, how long do you want this show to run? You guys,
we're nearing on an hour. We still got two other categories. I just don't. If there's something that you really are passionate about, I want to make sure you get a shot.
I mean, I will say this. I'll just name off the last three movies I have, and then if there's anything in there that you guys actually want to talk about,
okay, I love it.
So the last three that I have in that category is A History of Violence. I have Smoking Aces, and then my Is It Organized Crime pick is Training Day.
For Training Day, I kept going around and around and feeling like it's disorganized crime. And in my mind, I kept putting like movies. I know the chat mentioned like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I put those movies into a category I call disorganized crime, which is like it certainly is an attempt to have organized crime, but it's always those like we're the B level of organized crime guys that are blowing it a lot, and there's always a little more fumbling going on.
Yeah.
But it's such a good movie. I mean, such an amazing movie.
Yeah, like I didn't know if it fit necessarily into our categories of organized crime. It's drug crime, kind of. I feel like I'll talk about Training Day any day.
You did that we discussed it like 3 times when we were doing African Americans in cinema because the director and the star, and it kept coming up.
I'll say this, my only reasoning, and like, I didn't think it really fit, but I really wanted to make it try to fit. So it's in my Is It category, but I would put it if I tried to force feed it into a category. And the reason why is because I think that inherent corruption in the department that they're trying to show that also stretches to like not only the higher ranks, but politically as well. They touch on in that movie, I think is the part to me that fits best into the organized crime category. Even though drugs are part of it, I'd almost put it also into like a heist category before I put it into drugs, simply because a lot of the movie is set up for when they rob Roger and steal his money. Everything they're doing up until that point is to get money to pay the 3 wise men, to pay guy, to pay that guy, to set up, to pay the guys to take out Ethan Hawke. Like everything is like a setup for this kind of master plan that revolves around, I need to rob this guy, take his money, and keep myself alive.
Exactly.
It's a great movie. Like I said, I'll talk about it any day.
Well, and this is also a way to connect into comic books because History of Violence is a graphic novel and is an amazing movie that is like, it's almost like organized crime the sequel, where like you've left organized crime and now you can't get out. It's pulling you. The pull is always there.
And
great movie.
That's a movie I purposely probably wouldn't have put on, just because I would have saved it for a category I want to do eventually with John of like, do you remember this as a comic book? Like, I want to do like comic book movies that like, we're not talking like Avengers or any Marvel or Batman movie. We're going to talk about stuff that we're like, wait, that was a comic book. Like, because I think that Red, that, you know, even stuff like Men in Black, people don't realize it was a comic book before it was a movie. And I think that would be a fun category to do, where like, do you know it was a comic book movie? There's a lot of just interesting movies I think that people forget sometimes. And
I'm forgetting the name right now. I'm sure you'll remember the Tom Hanks where he's a
Road to Perdition.
Road to Perdition is one that I feel like almost always tops those lists that people think of. Gore says, where would you put Transporter? I mean, that's a tricky one. I almost feel like you need like a
Jason Statham category,
car chase category or something, you know. Put Ronin and Transporter in a movie of like chasing with cars across Europe somewhere.
No, you can just literally do Jason Statham crime movies. You got your Transporter, you've got your Expendables, you've got your Fast and Furious movies, you've got was he in Snatch?
Yes, he's in Snatch.
So I mean, again, just throw him in.
Yeah, Statham gets his own. Well, yeah, Fast and the Furious, right? Yeah, you said you throw them all in.
What was the one movie? Now I'm just blanking on it. Where he was an adrenaline junkie, like, and it shot in
Crank. Yeah.
Not a crime movie, but it's just a buck wild Jason Statham movie.
Yeah, for sure.
He does a lot of crime in there to stay adrenaline rush. So
yeah, he does commit a bunch of crimes.
Yeah.
So let's jump over to some drug crime movies. I know we did a lot of the sneaking drugs into the United States, traffic, Scarface kind of stuff. What are your feelings on these movies?
So I love Narc. We talked about that a little bit before the show started. Would definitely pick that on my list, even though it's one that I don't think is really mainstream. And totally on board with the Sicario pick. I thought that was a great movie. I can't do a show and not say that I hate Scarface. So I just despise it, and I hate it, and I hate that I have to say that. But you know, it has to be.
I'll allow it.
But I picked one movie that fits into that category of like bringing drugs into the United States, and that movie.
Pick one of the Millers.
No, I picked The French Connection as a drug crime movie, and a lot of people don't know that The French Connection is actually based on a true story.
Yep.
Those two main characters are based off of two real cops in New York City at the time who participated in making that film. And the bad guy is a real bad guy who really did get away, who was eventually caught, because that happens in real life in France, and never extradited to the United States, but he was eventually caught and arrested. But French Connection 2 is not based on anything real.
No.
That is totally fake. So get confused between the two.
So you wouldn't recommend that one?
No, not at all. It was definitely
such a money grab. That's such a money grab movie. Oh my God.
Yeah. I couldn't do one without putting American Gangster on my list. Not only is it another Denzel film, but it's also Ridley Scott, which is a director that's like my top two directors. Is Ridley Scott is up there in the conversation for sure. So that one was on there. And actually, funny enough,
I will say I think I vetoed that movie. I think he was pushing for American Gangster hardcore. So
I was like, pushing for hardcore. I liked it. I like it, and I liked it a lot more than you did.
Yeah, I think what happened for me was I think right when the movie came out, I enjoyed it, and then I read some article where they were just breaking down all the like crazy outlandish things that they changed for the movie.
Yeah,
how And I was like, okay, well, I don't even know why they made these changes. It seems arbitrary. They could have just made this a fictional movie. I don't know what they were doing.
But he still loves Remember the Titans, even though it's completely changed. But American Gangster, whoa. That's
like, Remember the Titans is okay, but Cool Runnings is garbage. Like, there's kind of like this.
There's no rhyme or reason for what movie where they bend the truth from a true story where John's like, listen, this is not cool. Remember the Titans? Okay.
As long as it's not Remember the Titans. Yeah, if it's Remember the Titans.
Rudy, it's okay. They can mess with the truth of Rudy. That's okay.
Rudy, football movies.
Another one I picked is I'm also a big Eastwood fan, and I picked The Mule. And that's a movie I didn't see that.
Haven't gotten to see that yet.
Somewhat recently. And that's another movie that's based off of a true story. That is based off of a true story of an older gentleman who was a United States Armed Forces veteran who got involved with the Sinaloa cartel and transporting drugs for them as a mule, because who's going to stop and search the car of like an 80-year-old white guy in a pickup truck that's like a war veteran?
Wow.
So that was definitely fun to watch, especially when that there's like a true story component.
Well, so I'll watch it no matter what. But Chris, how much did they change it? Like, will John like this, or will they change it too much that we just save him time that he's not going to like this movie? We should just stop it right now. Well, it's not a sports movie, so he's not going to like it. Never mind. All right. Don't change it up, and it's not a sports movie.
Changed his name, and they changed his profession before he was a drug, mule. So you probably would hate it, John.
Oh my God. ICTV Vinny is here, and he says, "What's that movie about in the late 70s, early 80s about guys taking over the subway?" I'm assuming you mean The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. Which they later remade with Denzel and Travolta. But the original, it was Mathau and what was the guy from The Sting that they were, and the boat captain from Jaws. Crap.
Sorry.
Oh man, who?
So the boat captain from Jaws was the original Travolta part.
Was Taking a Pelham, was that John Travolta? I thought it was Chris Pine.
No, it's Travolta and Denzel. Then you're thinking of Unstoppable, which is
Unstoppable is the train movie.
I'm thinking of another Denzel train movie. My bad.
Yeah. Which is so weird that you have somebody who's made 2 train movies, but
right? Yeah. Train heist movies. Denzel's like, I got you.
Right. Yeah. It's got a number. There it is. I see. Robert Shaw. Thank you so much, Stay Puff. I appreciate that. But it's a fun train heist sort of movie as well. Yeah.
And then so I have one more movie I picked in this category, and this is one that I actually like a lot because I feel like there's a lot of it is actually. So let me preface by saying this. I think most movies that involve cops are inherently bad at showing what it's actually maybe like in a police department, and they're bad at showing realistically how certain things happen, whether it be administratively or like functionally when dealing with crime. And I thought there was parts of this movie that did a better job than most police films of showing what actually can happen and actually does happen in police departments sometimes. And that movie is We Own the Night.
That's Joaquin Phoenix. Is that it?
Phoenix, Mark Wahlberg, and Robert Duvall. And, the gist of Joaquin Phoenix going undercover in like drugs. And what's curious for me and fun is that We Own the Night was the motto of the New York City Police Department street crime unit. And the street crime unit was plainclothes cops who were directed and sent to the most dangerous parts of the city experiencing drug, gang violence, shooting crimes. And they always worked basically overnights because that's obviously when most bad guys are out, right? And so their motto was We Own the Night, which is where this comes from as a title of the movie. And for me, that's fun because that's that unit was disbanded in the 70s because of a lot of issues with corruption and, profiling and, abuse and stuff like that. But it was rebranded as borough crime units, which were basically the same thing, just directed specifically to different boroughs in the city. And that's what I did for the majority of my career. So it is something that's like
personal for you. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It's part of why I enjoy that aspect of the movie.
I'm gonna need to. I only saw it
Another one I
once,
haven't seen.
so I'm gonna need to rewatch it now with that perspective, because that's a whole other layer to it.
And that component that I thought was really cool too, that a lot of people don't know about, is that is something it's been done more in the past than it has in the present, but that's something that has actually been done by the police department, which is to bring in people that are not yet cops and make them into undercover officers. They recruit people straight out of the academy like the first week. And the reason they do that is because they want to get to you and insert you in a place where they think that you would be effective before you become molded into the cop mindset, before you learn the law and the jargon and the behaviors that people can pick out as being like, you're a cop. They want to pull people fresh before they have that and be like, we think if you're willing, we could put you here and you could do this. And it happens a lot in the city, believe it or not, with obviously organized crime. They pick out a lot of guys that are Italian, Albanian, stuff like that, and insert them into, places where, they need some help.
Nice. So. Some other people in the chat mentioning Sin City, comic book crime movie. I don't know that it fit our categories very well. I mean, obviously there's some organized crime to it, and there is a serial killer, which is our final category we got to get to. But that's an interesting one. And then Runaway Train with John Voight. Man, I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
So do we need to do a train category?
Apparently.
Runaway Train. We can do Throw Mama from the Train. We can do Taking Pelham 1, 2, 3, Plane, Trains, and Automobiles.
Too many.
We can just do automobile names movies.
We're gonna do a month of planes, a month of trains, and a month of automobiles.
Snakes on a plane, airplane.
Right.
This started as a joke, but it's actually not the worst idea.
Air Force One.
Oh, God bless it. I love me some Harrison Ford throwing terrorists
Get off of my plane.
Fun fact, too, that the scene where the guy is escaping from the prison is shot in Mansfield, Ohio, in the same prison that Shawshank Redemption is shot
I was gonna say, when I saw it the first time, I was like, God, that looks like Shawshank.
It is.
Maybe I was in that mindset. Everything looked
Air
like
Force
Shawshank.
One, Shawshank Redemption, and Lil Wayne's music video where he's in a gold jail cell.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Are all shot in that prison.
I thought that jail cell looked familiar. But.
So if you're watching the Lil Wayne music video and you're like, huh, that gold jail cell looks really familiar.
I like that you're saying if I watch that.
Yeah.
Of course. That's the first thing I'm gonna do when this show is done. I'm gonna go watch the Lil Wayne video.
You are gonna do it just so you can
I actually said Little Wayne. I can't even say Lil Wayne. It's Little Wayne.
No, it's Lil.
I know. I'm saying little. Murder on the Orient Express. There we got more trains. More trains are happening.
More Express. Guys, we can do this all night.
Cassandra Crossing. I don't even know this movie. I think you guys are making movies up now. I don't know what's happening.
Would Back to the Future 3 count?
Yes.
Train.
Well,
there's a train.
If we're talking just about train movies, but if we're talking about they have to be in the title, then no.
Okay.
Oh man. So before we got going too deep here, Chris said this was not his favorite category of the ones that we went down. What is it about serial kill? Are you just not a fan of the genre, or what is it for you?
I just feel like I just haven't seen a lot of movies in the genre, so it's hard for me to I feel like the other categories I've just seen a lot, so it was a lot easier for me to try to pick through and remember movies, or kind of pick through my collection even and be like, DVDs, what movies do I own and see, whereas this category I really don't have that much. And while I agree with a bunch of movies on your list, I only own one of them, so it's tough. I'm not a big Silence of the Lambs guy. A 7 is my favorite. It's one of my favorite movies. So I would have picked that one hands down. And I really enjoyed Zodiac, but other than that, I wasn't big on anything else in this category. So it was a little tough too for me to pick movies, because I feel like some of the ones that I picked were sort of
Is it a serial killer movie?
I feel like almost everyone I picked is like, is it a serial killer movie? Or like, does it just have a serial killer in it? Or like, how do you like address that? So the first movie that I picked was Death Proof.
Ooh. Tarantino.
Which I love from a viewpoint that I own the same car. So I too have a Chevy Nova 1970 parked out in my driveway. So I might put a skull on it and a death seat at some point and kind of take it cruising to the bars.
Now I'm a little scared, but
But is that a serial killer movie? I don't know. Like, he kind of has a pattern, but it's not really established, and it ends up not being the meat of the movie. The meat of the movie ends up being sort of like a revenge story,
right,
with the girls. So I was sort of, once again, that's a movie that's like on the fence.
And not to keep bringing like the same movies up and again, but I literally considered Memento as a serial killer movie, because ultimately that's what this character is doing, is repeating and killing people over and over again and feeling like it's justified, but he's doing it because of mental illness. Like,
yeah,
they reveal that it's a serial killer movie at the end. Like, that's the reveal, is that how many people has this guy killed so far?
Yeah, that's true.
And just like I stopped John from having time bandits in the heist category again, I was like, no, dude, we gotta slow the Memento train. I love it. It's
so I had to try to sell him on Insomnia instead, another Nolan serial killer movie,
which is
a good one.
Actually really good.
Yeah, for sure.
Proof is a slasher flick. Hey, I think trying to distinguish between where a slasher flick and a horror movie line up that's a narrow line right there.
I definitely give it slasher flick. It's just a question of whether or not like that serial killer is like an actual part of it that's worth mentioning, or if it's like more of like an afterthought to the story. Another one that doesn't have like necessary like serial killing in the movie, and not necessarily a great movie, but like visually a movie that like really trips me out and I find really, really enjoyable, was The Cell.
I knew what you were going to say before you said it. That's awesome.
So, no one could deny, like, Jennifer Lopez, not a great actress, not a phenomenal job necessarily overall, but like just like a visually stunning movie. And the concept I really thought was cool. That whole idea of being inside someone's head or bringing them into yours and using that as a means to try to like solve a crime, I thought was like a really more unique concept for the time that the movie came out. Whereas like that stuff's more like prevalent in movies now because the technology now embraces kind of those ideas. Whereas when the movie was made, we were like dial-up modems still and stuff. Nobody was thinking about like those kinds of technology being realistic in any way.
I would say The Hitcher is a serial killer movie, but that's just me. But same with Halloween. I think the original Halloween I would call as well serial killer movie.
Well, yeah,
is epic in The Cell. I agree.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's another thing that I talked about at dinner with my wife, because she kept bringing up horror movies, and I kind of was like trying to stay away from horror movies.
Right.
Like so many of them are like, well, yeah, like, is Jason a serial killer? Is Michael Myers a serial killer? Is Freddy a serial killer? Like, is Chucky a serial killer? Like, yeah, they are, but like, is that really the direction that I want to go? And I didn't think based off, well, first of all, you guys have already done horror as a show category. So there's no reason to repopulate a list with like only horror movies. But the fact
we were trying to avoid it. Yeah,
we've been trying to avoid horror.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't put any of those on the list. And then one that I picked that I thought definitely, once again is like, is it? But that I really enjoyed was Identity.
Ooh.
And so I think the argument,
right?
Yeah. And so I think the argument could be made that there's kind of is a serial killer, even though the resolution of the movie is kind of a big twist that kind of throws some of that off to the side. When you're watching the movie for the first, 3/4 of it, it is basically like a serial killer film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and so I don't want to like spoil the ending, but if one of my favorite movies about movies is Adaptation, another Nicolas Cage movie. And in that movie, his twin, Nick's twin, is writing this serial killer movie, all about how the serial killer has multiple personalities, and at the end the reveal is that the killer and the victim and the cop are all the same person. It's all in his own mind. It's all happening in his mind, and it's hilariously presented. And the rumor was that the writer of Adaptation had read the script for Identity and thought it was so freaking stupid that he wrote it into his movie as the joke screenplay in that movie. And I love both movies, and I can enjoy both of them, but it's hilarious that he thought it was so bad. He was like, I'm going to use this. I got to use this. So,
Chris, that's a nice way of John saying your pick is dumb.
No, not at all. I own Identity. I think it's hilarious. I think it's cool.
Okay. I mean, like I said, this wasn't a category that, I felt really strongly about picking anything in, to be honest, because I just didn't have a lot that I loved. Like I said, other than Seven, there was nothing that really jumped right to my head as like, I really like this flick. I want to put it in this category. And then the last one I picked in this category was fits into my guilty pleasure category because I love the kid, but Disturbia.
Shia again.
Yeah, I love Shia. I don't care what anyone says. I love him.
I have no problem with him. I think my only problem with him was when they tried to force him into becoming Indiana Jones. And I didn't hate him in that movie, but I think he's great. But I would have say man, that's basically just a Rear Window.
Yeah, for sure.
But I say that I still liked it. Because I think he adds an element. It's kind of like that, comedy, suspense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I know that this, I think Hitchcock gets remade a ton, and I think that the Rear Window is copied. I almost feel like every TV show in the 90s did a Rear Window episode at some point. They had that episode where Urkel got hurt and he was in his bedroom and he was looking outside and he thought he saw a murder.
There was a TV show.
Disturbia is like a high quality version. Absolutely. There
was a TV show, and I'm probably no one else in this chat. None of you guys probably watched it. It was on PBS, and it was called 3-2-1 Contact. It was like a math show.
I watched 3-2-1 Contact. Screw you.
They didn't. I don't know. This is the only thing I remember. They did a episode where it was like a Rear Window.
I do not remember that. That seems pretty dark.
I don't know why I remember it, but that's the only thing I remember from 3-2-1 Contact.
That's hilarious.
Hilarious. Now I'm glad that we had that moment then.
I was expecting Chris to throw Dirty Harry in there as a serial killer movie.
You know what? There's a couple Eastwood movies in that realm that have that serial killer aspect to them. I think Sudden Impact also, but they just didn't. Those are some of my least favorite Eastwood movies.
I swear I can't see the actor who plays the bad guy in Dirty Harry. I can't see him in anything else. He is just so freaking creepy in that movie. He's just ruined his career now for me.
But I go back though. I do love some Shia.
Everybody's saying Peanut Butter Falcon is amazing, and I got.
That's what I was just about to talk about. It almost made my "Is it a sports movie" list.
Yeah. So is Honey Boy. I don't know if you saw that recently.
No, I haven't seen either one.
Have you not? You haven't seen Peanut Butter Falcon?
Wait. He's made peanut butter and honey. Is he making sandwiches? Is he just hungry?
Absolutely.
Honey Boy is a somewhat autobiographical movie that he wrote while he was locked up in rehab mental facility after that last time that he got arrested, and it's basically a story about his life. But the kid who plays him is phenomenal. And then Shia plays his own dad, and his dad is a lunatic, and it really shows you a lot of why Shia is so freaking bizarre, because not only growing up in Hollywood and having so much success at a young age, but like the way that he was like treated and did certain films, and the way that like his family treated him. His dad kind of treated him as like a bank account, and so like that dynamic between like him playing his dad and his version of how he saw his dad growing up was like really interesting. So not only did a good film that he wrote, but he did a really good job acting in it, in that role.
And I was just checking, John. Peanut Butter Falcon is streaming on Amazon.
Yeah, I've got it on my watch list because everybody's been telling me to see it.
I'd be curious. I feel like I've suggested a handful of movies to you, and you're like, it was fine. So I'll be curious to see what you think about it. John's like, well, yeah, it's fine. That's classic John. When I'm like, hey, have you seen Green Street Hooligans? He's like, nah. Like, it's fine.
Hey, I watched it.
You did.
Yeah, at least followed through. At least it wasn't just like an empty, like, yeah, I'll check it out.
Well, I feel like that was only he followed through because we were trying to find soccer movies, and there were like only 2 soccer movies ever invented. Otherwise, he'd probably been like, yeah, Greg.
There's so much truth to that sentence.
I wrote down Miller's Crossing in my notebook so I can remember.
I got the drop right here, Tom Hardy.
See, we have, and I've got stuff from when Coach Vic was on with us.
Oh man, my Coach Vic list is so long.
And Gore too, the stuff he drops in.
Mitch is mentioning I Saw the Devil, a Korean film. So I got to look for that one. I got to write that.
Put that down.
I'll give you a Korean film that is a serial killer film that you need to watch, and that is The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil. It is
okay.
It is a South Korean serial killer cop gangster movie. If you don't want to watch the Korean version at some point in like the next year or so, it's going to come back out with Sylvester Stallone in it in America because he bought it. So
that's crazy.
I think I'd rather watch the South Korean.
you're comic, but some people hate to like read subtitles. So if you're
it's nice to see Lucy in the chat. I've met Lucy out in Palm Desert. She used to work at a comic shop that I would go visit when I go out to Palm Desert. Hi. So nice to see you. She goes by Mama Comic on Instagram if you don't know her.
No, I have to.
I think that was our last category here. Was there any movies that were in the I don't know if they are.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, can we do that kind of white collar
those already?
I gave you most of my movies that were on the fence when we covered those categories.
Yeah.
The only 2 movies that I have left on my list, one of them I was just hesitant to put on the list because it is such a guilty pleasure movie, but that's the remake movie, the comedy for 21 Jump Street. It's a drug movie.
It's
funny. And it's such a fun movie to watch that like I could watch that movie 100 times and never get sick of it. And then the only other, it's a crime movie for sure, but it absolutely does not fit into any of these categories. But I love it, and that's the Old Boy remake with Josh Brolin.
You love that movie?
I love that movie, and I think it's so freaking disturbing. And that's based on
you guys were talking when we were talking about foreign films that get remade. That was one that came to my mind. I was like, oh, like Old Boy is one that I watched because Spike Lee redid that one with Josh Brolin, and I didn't know anything going into that movie at all.
Movie, yeah, the Korean and they're just so it's just such a.
And I watched, and I say because it is so disturbing, but holy buckets, holy buckets, like. I want to talk to whoever wrote that movie and just be like, are you okay?
Yeah, like what? Yeah. You need a hug.
Are you okay? As
they need a check-in. They just need a check-in.
Oh, Samuel L. Jackson was in that too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he ran the.
Yeah. He was the one monitoring the. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, clearly doesn't fit into any of the categories, but I feel like it's definitely to me a crime movie. So I just felt like. I'm going to be on the show. I got to drop that one at some point. And even if like one person out there that hasn't seen it watches it and totally has their mind fucked up for like the next couple of weeks.
So this is gang. If you've never watched Old Boy and you go to watch it, this is a Chris recommendation.
Yeah. Don't hold it against these gentlemen. They have nothing to do with this. But,
I will say I think it's worth watching alone just because the storyline is so disturbing that it's like
Holy buckets! There's a trilogy. The Korean film. There's a trilogy in Korean. I've seen the original, and that was more than enough for me.
So have you not seen you've seen the original, but not the remake?
I've not seen the remake. I saw the trailer, and I was like, I just couldn't believe they were remaking it, and I was like, I really don't need more of this.
Well, I feel like so many people watched the trailer and didn't know what it was about, like me, and walked in and go,
yeah.
Well, the trailer in no way prepares you for the action.
No.
And nothing in the movie itself prepares you for the ending. So it's just like, what the heck did I just watch?
Yeah. Well, and I think you couldn't possibly prepare them because the twist needs to have that shock value. Right. Otherwise, the whole thing is not worth it,
For sure. And if that happened to me, I would have done the same thing he did, probably.
Fuck.
Although I hate Chinese food, so that's a downside. But
Chris, I just thank you so much for joining us for this.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I hope I didn't take up too much time with my picks here, but
no, this worked out really well. We like this show because this is why we always want to keep like the kind of the wrap up show at the end, because it's just fun for us to hear people talk about movies that we either thought about or we were like, they didn't make our list, or stuff that we didn't know. And I think that's what makes it great. Like, I think just exposing ourselves and the community to more choices of what to watch is great. So
for sure,
you're fine.
To Live and Die in LA. Yeah. I mean, there's some drugs, there's some organized crime in there. I mean, you can look at it a lot of different ways for sure. William Peterson, man, in that Manhunter era.
Mm-hmm.
So real quickly for the chat, we are looking ahead at November and December, and we're looking ahead to do a sort of end of 2020 look back at some of the talented actors, writers, directors who we've lost this year. And we thought it might be fun to do a live stream every Saturday that we're available, looking at a specific individual and their contribution to movies. So if you want to join us, please let us know. Leave a comment, an email, or an Instagram comment. Let us know. We've got a rough idea of the 4 or 5 individuals we want to cover. And we know for sure that next weekend we're going to be talking about Sean Connery, who just passed away recently, and be looking at his films, good and bad, because there are definitely both. And spend a little time just looking at the legacy in film that Sean Connery's left us with. Yeah, exactly, Geek Aficionado. So if he is somebody that's had a huge impact on you and you'd like to have a moment to talk about him, definitely let us know. I know that we're looking at several of the big names that we've lost this year, and you can check with us to see if one of your favorites made that list. Right. And we can try to schedule maybe a Saturday that works better for you.
Yeah. And this was one of those Sean Connery passed last Saturday and we weren't scheduled to do anything. And I've never gone live. And I told John, I was like, I almost went live to just talk about like Sean Connery. We're talking like great movies and non-great movies. And I'm not going to spoil stuff here before, but I was like, there's so many movies that I watched as a kid of his, which is so interesting because like from the 90s on, there's so many that I watched that I was like, I want to just like talk about those movies. And John was like, well, why don't we still? And we kind of thought of this idea then to like, well, let's pay tribute to some people who have passed in 2020. And just, we're a show about talking about movies that we love. So let's honor some people that have passed away and let's talk about their movies. So like you said, we're talking Sean Connery next week. But if there's a director or an actor or actress that you guys are like, this person passed away and I would love to talk, they resonate with me, I'd love to talk about some of their movies. Let us know, message us on Instagram, and we can set that up. Because we kind of want to do this one more like this than like our slideshow pre-prep. We kind of just wanted to be like, here's a slideshow of like who we talked about, who we're talking about, like a picture or something. But like this, we just want to talk their movies and kind of keep it open. So,
So if you're interested in joining us for Connery, I know that I'm going to try to recommend some films for Bearded. If he can have a chance to catch any of them, he's going to try to recommend some for me. And then we can kind of just look back at a really, truly epic career.
Right. Yeah. And because I think that's going to be so interesting because I'm going to be more in his later career. And I know John will probably have some from the earlier careir. Maybe not.
I've definitely seen a fair amount of his early stuff. Obviously, the Bond films in particular. Right. But I'm a big. I think it's a Bridge Too Far. He's got a great part in that. That's one of those movies with those like 20,000 great actors in it, and I think he's just got a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
A Sean Connery retrospective. I haven't seen that before. I can taste the sarcasm in that sentence. It's just for you, Gore. So we are going to bounce out of here. I've got the channels and Instagram stuff linked for these two gentlemen down below. Any last words? Anything you guys want to highlight coming up that you want to mention? I know, Bearded, you just dropped your Dick Tracy Name That Character video on Friday.
I did. So Name That Character video. It's something that the missus and I were doing. We just are having fun. We're going to actually do a giveaway with that one really soon. That's going to be a giveaway themed from that. So be on the lookout for that. Monday, I do unboxings typically. Wednesday, I do some creator interviews. That schedule might get shifted a little bit because I'm got some creator interviews lined up and I'm going to be looking at doing some just other comic book related content with myself here. So check it out. Bearded Comic Bro on YouTube. I'm pretty freaking close to 400. So let's get there, gang. Let's make it happen. I want to be, when we're talking Sean Connery, I want to be sitting at 400 with you guys. So,
okay. Gore wasn't being sarcastic, but I could taste it anyways.
I don't think he was. I don't think there's enough tribute to him. So I'm excited.
Jimmy says he wants to be in on the Sean Connery sit down. So I just booked you, the Geek Aficionado. You're booked. Hit me up on Instagram. So if that works, let me know. If it should be next Saturday, 8 o'clock Pacific. So if that works for you too, Mike, happy to have you, man.
Yep.
And issues, I linked the Instagram, the YouTube, anything you want to let us know. I know every Wednesday you get you drop your covers for the next week, the look ahead.
Yeah.
So they can count on that.
Yeah, for sure. If you follow me on Instagram, definitely on Wednesdays, sometime between 3 and 5 Eastern time, after everybody's kind of picked up their books for that day, for that new comic book day, I drop kind of my top picks for the following week. Lately, I've been trying to drop some posts on Sundays to keep people kind of updated on the FOC, the final order cutoff, so you can pre-order or call your shops if there's some books you definitely want to make sure that you get in your pull list. And I mean that's about it for right now. Like I said, I got some stuff coming in January, so I'm sure I'll be on at some point with you again doing something.
Perfect.
And I'll drop some more information on that when we get closer. But yeah, in the meantime, that's it. Oh, and this coming week, if you follow me on Instagram, I'm going to do a giveaway this week just because I haven't done one in a long time. I'm going to give away my copy of Last Ronin. So for those of you out there who didn't get one, I'm going to do kind of a cool giveaway. Instead of just like tagging people and, liking the post, I'm going to ask people to nominate someone that they want to win the giveaway.
Perfect.
I like it.
And then I'll kind of compile a list out of that and figure out who's going to be the winner. So, if you follow me on Instagram, look out for that. You get yourself a copy of Last Ronin.
All right. Awesome. Hey, Chris, while we have you on, I just got to ask because I want to make sure I was subbing up. You are I Got Issues 2319 on Instagram, right?
Correct.
Okay. YouTube, your YouTube link takes you somewhere different. Is that? Are you?
Did I do the wrong thing?
No. Did you put the YouTube link for my Instagram?
He put the YouTube. He put your name YouTube on here, but your Instagram YouTube is different. So I wanted, if someone like goes to your Instagram, I wanted to be able to like.
I'm gonna remove that. I participated in an auction like 2 days ago, so I put the YouTube link for the auction video in my.
Okay. Because it took me to like a barbarian or something. I was like,
yeah,
no.
A friend of mine comes through. That's not. I'm gonna remove that. So don't.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure if people like what you're doing, I want to make sure they go to the right spot.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I mean, I'm not doing anything on YouTube right now, so it doesn't matter if you follow me on YouTube or not. You're not going to see anything. So,
well, still.
So I really do appreciate you coming by, Chris, and we'll get you on New Comic Book Day book club here again soon, no doubt. And thanks for my latest edited video was probably playing right behind Chris's head a second ago, just highlighting the books that come out each week. Every Thursday, I've been dropping the pull list. I already edited this week's video, so it's gonna be a longer one. It's gonna be like 13 minutes instead of the usual 10 or 8 or whatever. Because I've got 10 books on my pull list for the 18th. 10 books I'm buying. That's gonna be upset.
That scares the living crap out of me, because if you are buying 10 books, I hate to see what my pull list is. Because John's like, guys, this was a big week for me. I got 3 books. And I'm like pulling like 16. So John's has 10. I'm really scared of what my list is going to look like.
Well, the good news for you is there are 0 DC books. So I don't know what that means or doesn't mean for you, but yeah, no DC. It's like a ton of indies and then the 10 of swords. It's pretty much it.
Then I'm all right with that.
So that video just dropped Thursday. You can check it out. It's getting there. It's one of those edited videos I'm trying to get consistently dropping for my channel. Tomorrow I'll be on Dungeons and Dragons. Hopefully we survive We survived last week when Alec was sure he was going to kill us again, but we survived. So saved to make another day. I think Monday I'm doing Boy Who Had Sevens comic gories. Tuesday, we're reading X-Men 103, the end of the Juggernaut versus the New Team. And then book club on Wednesday. I'm sure we got some hot new indies that we're going to be going over. I think it's Scarant Hood from IDW might be the indie that we're looking at this week. Todd Christian has 20 books. Boom. Hey, brother, I've got to trim way down. Otherwise I'm not going to be able to do the other stuff I want to do for my collection. Although I was saving up to have to buy one of these, and then Man Cave crushed this A-OK. So obviously I don't have to save up for this insane book now. So I'll just put that right there. Thanks, everybody in the chat, for hanging out with us. I appreciate you coming by. Gore Vidal, you can catch the rewind, but I think you were here for almost all of it. Next weekend, like I said, we'll be talking Sean Connery. So if you want to recommend a Sean Connery movie for us, definitely leave a comment down below, and we will add it to the list to make sure one of us has been able to speak about it.
Yes.
All right, guys. Good night.